One of the things, just so you know, we are going to be launching our online class, which is really a self-study sort of experience. So I urge all of you who have taken our social emotional development. We're working on social emotional development. We're trying to figure out how to do organizational space and time effectively online. Because of the nature of our sessions, it's super hard to do these sessions in an online format. Let me move this up a little bit. It's easier for us to do sessions, obviously, in person, because in person we can have that engagement. We can have the experience of, especially around our content areas like our math, our science, and our ELA. We have a lot of opportunities that we provide for you to actually engage in and reflect upon. It's really hard to create a dynamic experience online, but we are diligently working at it. Social emotional development will be launching probably in the next few weeks, I'm hoping. We've hit a couple glitches with it, but I'm hoping that it will be fine. So I urge all of you, even if you've never taken social emotional development, but if you have, it really helps, I think, as a reminder, because there's so much content that we want, that you forget. You go to the session and you go, oh yeah. And remember, what I say to folks is, just choose 3 to 5 things. Just choose those things, and that's what you work on implementing. So it's a good way for you to get a refresher course. And if you've been with us for a year or two, then you're ready for the next step. You're ready for the next few strategies. And so I think it will be good. There will be those 4 areas. So the 4 areas under, we use a lot of the research out of CASTLE, which is the Center for Academic Social Emotional Learning. And so those 4 areas plus building a sense of community. So self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, and relationship skills. Those 4 areas plus building a sense of community is what we'll be covering online. So a lot of the foundational stuff that happens at the very beginning, we're not actually doing that online because it's very challenging to do that. So there will be parts of that in terms of the brain research, but we're really sticking to the foundational elements in terms of the research. So there was something else I wanted to tell you. I don't remember what. So if Marisa jumps on, I think it was something I was supposed to mention. I don't know. It'll come to me, I'm sure. But as I mentioned, I have been, I was training all day long today, so I'm a little tired, but tomorrow is a packed day, and then Saturday I'm training again. So I am trying to jump on for just a little bit to talk a little bit more about social and emotional development. Oh, I know what I was supposed to share with everyone. So Debbie and I are developing 2 things that we're hoping to share soon. The first thing is we've gotten a lot of questions about classroom. What does the schedule look like? Not the day in the life, because I've done some of that, but really what does the schedule look like and what types of experiences happen within that schedule? We've had some questions from teachers who have had some sessions, but a lot of teachers who have not had our sessions. And so they see the daily schedule and they're like, okay, what happens during that block of ELA time? Do the children use the entire classroom area during your ELA time, or do you keep them at tables? I mean, we've had lots of questions like that. We've had questions about, our whole thing about whole group instruction really should be minimized, and children should have more opportunities, really in small group opportunities for learning. And so how do you set that up? And so we've gone through the daily schedule, trying to map out, if we were teaching in the classroom today, what would that actually look like? And so we are planning, hopefully, we've been working on launching this. The problem is just always finding the time to coordinate to be able to sit down and do this together. So Debbie and I are definitely working on that to help some of you who are still struggling or trying to figure out how do you manage the day in terms of schedule, and how does the learning areas, how do they function within that day schedule. And one of the things, just quickly, because we've gotten so many questions about this, has been the issues around that block of time, that chunk of time that we recommend, 45 minutes to an hour of uninterrupted, child-initiated, adult-supported. Now, during that time, teachers could be doing tier 2 intervention. Teachers could be doing project-based learning with a small group of children. Teachers could be absolutely all the time doing assessment and taking photographs and anecdotal notes and really engaging with children at a deeper level. And so teachers tell me all the time or ask me all the time, well, what happens to the other children when you're working with a small group? This is why the learning environment is so critical, because when the learning environment is rich and meaningful and purposeful for children in their work, you don't have to be there hovering around. Initially, in the first 6 to 8 weeks, that's kind of what we've been talking about that whole time, is establishing those rituals and routines. And then when you have a rich classroom environment, children are engaged and they're deeply engaged. And so because the experiences are meaningful to them. And so you have the opportunity then to work with a small group of children, to engage in the block area. We always have to remember that when you are designing your learning areas, it's not just the time that they play. It is a meaningful opportunity for learning, that where you're sitting and you're engaging and you are having the experience of listening to them engage with one another, that you're asking those meaningful questions, not questions like how many are there, what color is it, what letter is that, but asking them questions about how did you do that? Tell me your thinking behind putting this next to this. Or tell me about your recipe, because kids like to pretend play, and I had some 12-year-old children in our sociodramatic play area, and they were doing pretend play. I was blown away by that. They were pretending that they were a restaurant, they were taking orders, and even though they were 12-year-olds, there was some complex language that came as a result of that. It was incredible to watch. And so children are going to engage in that experience of pretend play in the sociodramatic play area. And it's your opportunity to model, maybe even social graces, because there's sophisticated language that comes with that. Or even ordering something. Yes, I absolutely would like to try your filet mignon. How can I get that cooked? Are there lots of different, and just to engage in that kind of conversation with them, whether they fully understand or they don't, it's kind of fun to do that. I love that. I love doing the absolute kind of that sophisticated experience of the engagement in the sociodramatic play area, because they really let loose and they really try to play with language at the level that you're playing. And so those types of experiences strengthen the language skills that they need for literacy development. So you should be engaged in those experiences. It's not just they go play in these areas while you're at the work table where children are busy learning things while those kids are practicing those skills. This is a space where you should be engaging, sitting on the floor in the block area. And so we're going to talk about those types of things and when we go through that daily, what the daily schedule looks like. The second thing that we've been working on is a lesson plan format. The lesson plan format, we've gotten questions a lot from like year 2 when we were in this program or this project. We've had teachers ask about a lesson plan format. Now, the lesson plan format, we've seen variations of it. So teachers have sent us the formatting for what's required at the district. So in each district, like I've said to everybody who's been to the session, it's its own country. So every district has its own regulations, its own laws, its own climate, its own culture. It's totally unique. As is, if you can imagine, the lesson plan format. We have had so many come to us that are just so uniquely different. There's no way that we can take them all and kind of make them one, because that would make everybody crazy. So what we're trying to do is take ones that we have developed in the past and really try to have space and places for you to be reflective of the goals, individual goals for children, the standards, the developmental assessment, where we're the assessment process that we have adopted in our state. So if you didn't know this, our state has adopted the KDI and the Teaching Strategies Gold for kindergarten through 3rd grade. And so we are super uber excited about this because it creates it aligns from our preschool. And then technically, if we've got some children in programs for infants and tots where they use Teaching Strategies Gold, the 3rd grade teacher would be able to access information about that child's development, even as far back as we've been collecting data for that child that the teachers have. And so the teacher would be able to look at the child's profile at preschool at 3 years of age. And so it's amazing to see that growth and development over time. So we're super excited about that experience. If you are capturing goals for children using that assessment, using the standards, using the individualized goals. If you're using, looking at IEP goals, looking at some tier 2 intervention, we want to create a format and a space where you can kind of plug those in. So that hopefully we will have done probably in the next couple weeks, and then we'll put it out there. So if you'd like to use it, you can. It will help with being able to keep in mind the learning areas, also keep in mind workstations to really support maybe certain things that you are introducing, but then also taking a look at some project learning and how do you help children go deeper. So we're trying to integrate all of that. So it really is kind of the work of a magician. So anyhow, that's what's happening now. So I'm not sure whether to just keep going or if I should stop and then like log in again so we have a different a stream to start with social and emotional development. Okay, so in terms of taking a look at what I call level 2, it's like 2.0 we were talking about in the office, that 2.0 social emotional development. So the session that you all attend when you do that initial social and emotional development, that is really about foundations. Those are foundations in the classroom with respect to providing opportunities where children feel safe, they feel connected, they feel they can see themselves as a competent learner and an significant person in the classroom environment, and in the that we all have a relationship with one another and that we're all respectfully responsive to each other. Those are all foundational skills. And so when you attend our social emotional development, we go through the foundational perspectives about, we talk a lot about rewards and punishment. We talk about and why rewards and punishment. There's no place for that in our classroom. The other thing that we talk about is how we talk to children, the language we use, and the significance of semantics and the significance of the actual tone and the words that we choose, and that it doesn't matter whether you're 5 or you're 50 or you're 4 or you're 40, it's still disrespectful to children. And so we have to be very mindful of how we actually direct and redirect and support and acknowledge children. And so we talk about that. We also talk about mirror neurons, and there's a nice video that we show about mirror neurons that really talk about the significance of the synaptic connections that are forming, and that you play a significant role in how children perceive themselves in the world and how they learn to actually engage. And so we do all of that is foundational. And then we get into building community. Building community, I think, is at the core of creating a classroom climate where children can see themselves as successful members of a greater community. This is super significant, not only in kindergarten, but as the child progresses over the course of his educational career, and also in life. It's a very important thing for children to be able to see themselves as competent and significant contributors to the greater good or to our society. We want children to be contributing members of our society, and that begins in the earliest of years. And so building a community, too many teachers take that for granted. Too many teachers think, oh yeah, we come together as a group, we express caring of one another, we listen to one another. That's not enough. It's not enough to do those types of experiences. You actually have to intentionally engage in ways that we build a sense of community. How we are with one another, how we care for one another, how we engage in the environment, how we take care of things, how we take care of ourselves. What's the language we use when we're frustrated, irritated, anxious, when we're all those things? How do we support each other? How do we even engage in the process of extending well wishes to one another when someone is out sick? What if we have concerns about them? What's the language we use to be able to tell them that, are you okay? What can I do to help you? All of those, and it's not just social graces. It's not the process of saying thank you, I'm sorry, and what's the thank you, I'm sorry, and you're welcome, and all of those things. Those things are important, but we don't actually directly teach. We don't expect children to do those without them having the supportive understanding and the modeling of how those are used effectively. So it's not just about the social graces. It's not about just being polite or being nice. It's about helping children from a place of integrity know how to connect with one another in ways that are responsive, that are respectful, and that provides a space for children to have those big emotions without feeling judged, without feeling that anyone's demeaning them or that we have low tolerance for that type of behavior, because they are simply learning how to self-regulate. They are simply learning how to figure out how to identify what they're feeling and how to get their needs met. And so we very often have low tolerance for children's misbehavior. But when we look at it from the perspective of helping them learn to develop skills in the content area, so if a child's not knowing how to, having some struggles with CBC words or having struggles with just basic letters because it's the beginning of the school year. So children are having those struggles. We're not going to put them in timeout and punish them and send them to the office because they haven't figured out the letters to their name or how to be able to write, to be able to hold a pencil and be able to write their name effectively. We're not going to punish them. And if you are doing that, you need to leave the field because it's inappropriate. And the truth of it is that we have low tolerance for children's misbehavior because we see it as though the child's trying to piss us off. He knows better than that. I've seen him behave well at this time of the day, or on most days he's okay, but on this day, once a week he has a blow up, and the day happens to be Mondays or maybe Fridays. And so, there may be a circumstance where Monday, it's a hard transition coming back to school. And I have to tell you, when you're 5 years of age, coming back to school can be incredibly challenging. I know for me, even though I work nonstop and I work over the weekend, the process of actually having to start the work week on Monday is very challenging for me. I dread Monday mornings, and because I got to get back into the grind, into the routine of waking up and doing lunches and getting everything packed up and da-da-da-da-da-da. That's hard for me. And I'm like a grown-up. And so little kids sometimes have a difficult transition just getting back into the swing of things. On top of that, maybe that's the end of a weekend stay with dad or with mom, or maybe, mom works on the weekend. And so the kids stay with grandma. And so that transition back is challenging. So all of that plays into it. Maybe Fridays are difficult. I've worked with a lot of kiddos in the foster care system. And so what happens is on Fridays, they are going to get their visit, or that, mom or dad or whomever might come on Saturday. And so that anticipation, the anxiety, the uncertainty, are folks going to show up for me? It starts to fester and starts to build up on Friday. And so we get really with low tolerance without really understanding that these are little people who have life experiences just as you and I do. And so we have to stop coming from a place of trying to get kids to act right for the sake of acting right, but rather figuring out what's the unmet need. So I'm going to tell you a quick story here as I move into this. I have a new dog. Well, she's not new. She's about, we've had her for almost a year now. October will be a year. Her name is Bashira. And we had a pug for 15 years that I absolutely and completely adored. But our pug had issues. She was of the litter because we got her when she was a puppy. She was the one that was anxious. She kind of stayed on the side of all of the playful puppies that were jumping up and down and excited. She was the one in the back kind of shivering and afraid, but the cutest thing ever. And so, of course, of all people to select Micah, we would, right? And so Micah, we ended up nurturing her fear. And I responded to her the way I would a child, as opposed to what we should do for a dog. And so we nurtured the fear, and we made it just a bad situation. And by the time we figured out that we were part of the problem, we were so many years in. So we did dog training, we did all these things, but it made life challenging. It was hard to find somebody to care for Micah. It was when we wanted to go on vacations. It was just very difficult to not give up on our commitment to our dog, who we absolutely loved, but made our lives difficult at times. And so our daughter, because our daughter came 7 years after Micah, their relationship was pretty much where they just lived in parallel of one another. They didn't engage a whole lot. Gia, my daughter, wasn't able to pet Micah because Micah got aggressive. And so Gia learned early on, just leave her alone and let her be. And that's what they did. They kind of lived parallel one another, but didn't really do a lot of engaging. And we wanted Gia to have a different experience of a pet. And so after Micah's passing, some time passed, and then we opted to get our dog Bashira, who is the best dog in the whole wide world. We are so thankful and have so much gratitude. And as a side thing, we got her from Soul Dog in Tucson. So if you're in Tucson and you know about Soul Dog, it's a wonderful rescue. So we worked closely with Rachel from Soul Dog to meet Bashira and to adopt her and all of that. So I wanted to make sure that we did it right with Bashira, and she's a pit bull mastiff mix. And so what that means is that if we're going to be at the doggy park, if we're going to be someplace and my dog gets triggered by a little yappy dog or a little dog that, and I've seen this happen before, my dog is going to get blamed. She is, because she's a pit bull. And that's just what happens with pitties, unfortunately. And so I wanted to make sure that we knew exactly what we were doing with such a strong dog. And so we went into starting our training. So we went to, if anyone's familiar with the Dog Whisperer, I wanted somebody who was similar in his approach, and Cesar Millan. And there is a person here in the Valley that we connected with, and we started to go do trainings. And these trainings are intensive trainings. I mean, it is no joke. He comes in and he's like, do this, don't do this. And it's all about leadership. And the leadership is, you have to be the leader of the pack. It's basically what you're doing. And as I was listening to him, and I know Cesar Millan's work because of my experience with our first dog, that pillar of strength that we talk about in terms of children, there was no difference. And I don't mean this disrespectfully. I'm not trying to compare dogs and children. Please help me get that straight. What I'm saying is that there is something about the energy that we have and the significance of being the pillar of strength that is very similar, that what he was expecting us to do. And so we went through all of this process, and she was doing great. I mean, really a phenomenal dog. I mean, she's smart. She picks up things so quickly. But one of the things that she consistently did was she pulled. And so we were walking on a leash, and she would pull, and she would get excited and start pulling. And so I went back to him one of the weeks, and I said, you know what? We did this. Yes. We're doing all this. But she pulls. How do I fix that? And he looked at me and he said to me, we're not going to go there. He said, you still need to learn how to do this. You still need to learn how to do this. And you need to learn how to do this. And until that happens, it doesn't matter what I tell you about pulling. It's not going to work, because you have to build those foundational elements in your relationship and understanding of who's the pack leader. And so that consistency is critical. And I stood there kind of stunned in my own space. And the reason is because it's exactly what I say about children. It's exactly what I say about children. When teachers come to me and say, I have this kid, and I have this kid. He's doing this, she's doing this, I'm blah, 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 blah. Okay? The truth of it is that connectedness governs behavior. That is a quote from Dr. Becky Bailey. Connectedness governs behavior. And if we have children, if you go in to do to children as opposed to with children, this is where we have to revert to the punishment and reward model. Because if the child doesn't care about you and feel like you have a vested interest that is authentic and loving and responsive, then the child is not going to care enough to want to do what you're requesting of them. They're just not. The other thing about misbehavior, and again, I'm going into the 2.0 piece, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the initial social emotional development experience that many of you have had, but this is the next level of this. Misbehavior or perceived misbehavior is an unmet need. So we have to stop looking at misbehavior as misbehavior, but rather as an unmet need. What is the unmet need? And I will tell you, teachers say this to me over and over and over again. The unmet need, he just wants attention. He just wants attention because I have 25 other children in the classroom. He just wants attention. And if you've taken any type of Psych 101, initial classes in child development, or classroom management classes, you have heard the term attention-seeking behaviors. And oftentimes, the perspective and the approach about attention-seeking behaviors is to ignore it, and to ignore it. Well, I have to tell you that perspective was all wrong. And it's actually, in my professional opinion, garbage. And the reason is because they're not attention-seeking children or attention-seeking. They're connection-seeking. They are looking for authentic, loving, responsive connections. We are born with an inherent need to feel like we belong and that we are connected. Unfortunately, the experience that many children have is that the way that they get connection is to do something inappropriate. Because if I do 5 things inappropriately through the course of the day and my teacher or my mom or my dad has to stop what they're doing to respond to me, I'm getting a need met. It may not be done in a way that's socially acceptable or appropriate, maybe not, but I'm still getting that need met. And so we often see this misbehavior as something that needs to be punished, because if we don't make a child feel bad enough, he's not going to want to change. And that's really what a lot of our approaches come down to. I'm going to put your name on the board. I'm going to take a recess away. I'm going to call your parents. You're going to lose clip down. You're going to lose your whatever because of your behavior. I'm going to contact your mom immediately and let her know how you're behaving, because we think that if we make a child feel bad enough, they'll go, oh my goodness, I have to change that. And for some children, but these aren't usually the children who are the ones who are misbehaving. The children who are pushing back are the kids who need the most connection. These are the kids that are least deserving of our love are the ones who need it the most. But our systems are, when a child misbehaves, he gets these consequences, and then he gets shipped out to another classroom, to another teacher, to the principal's office, and we are doing the exact opposite of connection. We're disconnecting. And do you know how many mental illnesses, including the things that are associated with addictions, have more to do with disconnect than anything else? Not connected to self, not connected to others. Disconnect is at the core of many of our concerns. And so we start this at a very young age because we don't know what to do and we don't know how to respond in ways that are consistently appropriate. And let me tell you why this is so challenging. Many of us come from a foundational belief system that comes from our early experiences, from when we were children, and even our parenting and the way that we've parented our children. We have sometimes a foundational belief that when you do good, you get good things. And so when you get good grades and you behave appropriately, you get candy, you get rewards, you get a trip to the ice cream place, you get an extra recess, you get. And when you do wrong or something badly, you need to be punished by that. And so we're going to take something away from you. But I'm going to go back to that experience of, does that work for you? If I tried it as an adult to make you feel bad enough, will you sit there and go, oh my goodness, I really need to change my entire lifestyle, or I need to change that habit? And can we really automatically do that within a matter of a couple days, a couple hours? Because that's really the expectation that we have of children. We have to have these deeper conversations about expectations and what children's needs are really when we're seeing inappropriate or challenging behaviors. Okay? So, having said all that, you have to have the rituals in place, the experiences in place in order for a child to feel connected and a sense of belonging, not just to you, to the classroom and to their peers. This is a significant part of their classroom experience. If I don't feel like somebody cares about me, I don't care if I get in trouble. I don't care if you send me away. But if people are concerned, connected, and feel like, and I get a sense of belonging, then I'm going to have more of an interest, if not an effort, to stay connected to my peers and to my teacher. Okay, so some of these things that we've talked about in the session is those rituals that we do, the morning greeting, the rules, the 3 rules that we have in the classroom. And we have to be clear about those rules, our classroom name, that whole process of creating a collective name, all of those processes of even having opportunities for children to work collaboratively with one another, to learn scripts, to engage with one another. All this stuff we do in social emotional development, those things have to come first, because you are just like the dog trainer was telling me about Bashira. It isn't going to matter if I give you all of the strategies if you don't have those systems and processes in place, because the child has to feel engaged and loved, quite honestly loved. So let's talk about this piece before we get into, I'm just going to give you a couple strategies this time, because I've already talked for probably way too long. So let me talk about authenticity. So we have to, and I want you to just kind of imagine this experience with me. For those of you who have had children and those of you who have not had children, because it's still possible to have this experience within you. I even remember this with some of my kiddos in my classroom. Think about an infant, because that's usually when this is easiest to feel. An infant, a young toddler that you're just holding them. And you get that gush of emotional experience of just feeling connected or warm or just loving. That authenticity in that experience is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about authentic connections. It's not enough to say good morning to the child. It's not enough to just smile at the child. Those are good things to do, and you should be doing them all day long. But we need to have an open-hearted experience when we're working with young children, with children in general. Too often we teach from here, and we are directive, and we direct children, and we set up all of these systems in place. But open-heartedness is a very different experience. Open-heartedness is actually listening with your heart and connecting at the heart level. And so when I think about those kiddos who I really need to do some connection with, I have to get to the place of finding that within me where I feel that warmth and that kind of like that tenderness and that love. When I see this child, that's the experience that I need to have. And I have to practice that, because what happens is we get to a place of frustration. And the frustration, even if you say nothing, the child feels that. It exudes from just your presence, that you're irritated, you're frustrated, you're annoyed, and you hope that the child gets the flu. That just kind of exudes. And so, and then if we top it off with language, sometimes the language that we use is not about the words, it's about the tone. So when we say good morning to a child, you want to say it in a way, or when you greet a child, you want to say it in a way is that I am genuinely interested and excited about you, in you. I want you to be here, and just be so engaged in the child's experience of school from a heart place, okay? It is so incredibly challenging to help teachers understand how to be emotionally responsive to children if in their tone and body language, I can clearly see they don't like a kid. And I have to tell you that the way you know whether you're doing it is not just by self-reflection, because we often don't think we're doing that. The way to see how you are really engaging with a child is to videotape or audio tape yourself. And even ask a colleague, is there any way or anything that you hear or see that could be perceived that I'm not approaching the child from an open heart? And what do I need to do to be much more emotionally responsive to the child? And so that experience is kind of the first step of really learning how to connect at an emotional level. Okay, so here are a couple strategies. And I'm only going to give you a couple, because I want you to just kind of focus on these, and then I'll jump back on and give you a couple more. The first one is at the beginning of the day, for kiddos that are challenging, I want you to write 3 to 5 things that makes him an incredible human being. This is a strategy that Jenna, who writes the book Beyond Behavior Management that we give out in our sessions, a strategy that she shared with us. But 3 to 5 things that make this child an incredible human being. Now, I'm going to say this because this has happened a couple times, and I want to make very clear. This is about your understanding, your perceptions of the child. This is not about calling the parent and saying what makes your child an incredible human being. This is not about asking the child what makes him an incredible human being. Because the 5-year-old children are going to say, I run fast, I like my shoes. This is not about that. This is about you knowing each and every child as an individual person with incredible abilities and incredible contributions to the classroom. And so when we perceive the child as someone who misbehaves, someone that speaks out of turn, someone who has difficulty with task completion, when we see the child through that lens, when he walks in the door, guess what you're going to see more of is that. So what you pay attention to is what you're going to get more of. And so the idea is for you to set the stage each day. Just get a notebook. And every morning, and I'm telling you, don't skip because you look at the list and go, oh yeah, it's the same thing today. It's the process of you actually being thoughtful and writing the 3 to 5 things that make him an incredible human being. Okay? So you're setting yourself up to shift your energy from to having that engaged and excited experience where he feels invited into your classroom and your space. Okay? The second thing is 5 minutes of uninterrupted you and the child. Okay? So, and I know how difficult this is. I get it. You're by yourself. You've got 27 children in the classroom. But I'm here to tell you that this child, and I'll say she now because I use he a lot. I just do because I always have my Johnny in my mind. And those of you who've been in my session know about Johnny. 5 minutes of uninterrupted time. The child's getting it. The child's getting more than 5 minutes. It's in the middle of circle time. It's in the middle of, let's say you're doing a story, you're doing a small group and you're reading a story and doing even an author study. The child gets it because he's off task or disruptive or whatever it is that makes you stop and go respond to the child. The child is getting oftentimes more than 5 minutes of your day, quite honestly. And if you really take a look at it, it could even be upwards of 30, 40 minutes that you are responding to the challenging circumstances. And so when we spend 5 minutes, again, we go back to the understanding that it's an unmet need. So if the need is attention, which remember what I told you, it's not attention, it's connection. That you are providing that level of connection by giving 5 minutes of your time. It could be before school starts, if you've got a playground that the children meet at in the morning or outside the door, of just having that 5 minutes. Now, I have to tell you, it is following the lead of the child. So it's not during your intervention. It's not during your guided reading. It's not during those times. It is the experience of being with the child, where the child's taking the lead and the child gets to do and engage with you, whatever, well, you know what I'm saying, not anything inappropriate, of course, but if the child wants to play a quick card game or wants to tell you a story about the brand new puppy that they got, all of those experiences have to emerge from the child's desire to share with you, not your own agenda. Okay? So please be very clear about this. You cannot count the times that you are doing direct instruction or the time that you are have a specific goal for the child. This is really about child-initiated connections. So 5 minutes of uninterrupted, you and the child connecting, okay? That is a significant, it could be outside, it could be inside, it could be at lunch, it could be any of those things, but that you are fully present for the child. Okay, so that's another one. Another one is that for every time you redirect a child or respond, and I want to refer you back and just remind you, for those of you who have had our sessions, the language that we use with children is super significant. And so just be mindful of that. Not how many times did I tell you, you know better than that. You need to use your words because children often don't have their words. They say stuff that they've heard before, but many grown-ups don't have effective language to deal with conflict or difficult situations. And so we want to be very clear that we are being loving and responsive and supportive when we are using language with children. So at school, this is what we do. So at school, we keep our bodies safe. And so, I don't know, right now it's time to whatever we're doing right now. This is what we're doing safely. So at school, remember we always use the at school, see if anybody remembers why, but we say at school, we keep our bodies safe. Come, let me help you be able to do that. And so let me put this on for you. So whatever the situation is, we use scripts like that. And remember, there were scripts that we often give out in our social and emotional development sessions. So if you've been to our session and you didn't get a set of scripts, please let us know and we can email those to you. So for every time you redirect, you've got to connect 3 to 5 times, authentically connect. That's a smile that is, and I mean an authentic smile, not one of those kind of fakey smiles that people do a lot. I mean an authentic smile that with endearment. Same thing with eye contact. And I say this all the time, eye contact is super powerful. Eye contact will bring two people together in a bar, and mothers know all about eye contact. And if you had a mother who does it well, you know whether it's a good thing or a not good thing. So eye contact is powerful. You want to use it for good, though, okay? You want to use it for good. And you look across the room, and again, with just that loving connection from across the room, a smile, going up to a child, and if the child is willing, that brings me to another thing. The child's willing, even putting her arm around, and as they're engaging and telling you a story or something that they've written or something that they've built, so that you are having these authentic connections. So for every time you redirect a child, correct, redirect, help or support them into whatever it is that they're doing, you've got to make authentic connections that are positive experiences. And I don't mean good job. I don't mean good job, okay? And I'm not going to get into that because that's in our social emotional 101 session. But I mean truly authentic feedback or connections that are meaningful to children. So for everyone, you've got to do 3 to 5. Now, here's the thing about some children with physical touch. And you know what? I know that there are schools that are saying we don't touch children. And I have to tell you, that's a travesty. That is a travesty. We need human touch. It is essential. And in conscious discipline, they talk about joy juice and what gets released when we have physical touch that's healthy, obviously. But the significance of the physical touch in terms of the release of chemicals in our bodies that are feel-good chemicals. And so and I don't even know what to say about programs who don't do that, because I think that that's damaging, quite honestly. But so I have I'm wanting to put my arm around a child who goes like this, or who flinches, or is like, no, I don't want you to touch me. Sometimes in some situations, if children have experienced trauma, or if touch is, they don't know how to receive love. I know a lot of grown-ups who don't know how to receive love. And a lot of grown-ups have a difficult time with attachment. That experience of knowing, it's like, I have a need for connection, and now you've extended connection to me, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know how to receive it. I don't know what to do with these good feelings. See, this is the kind of stuff that we don't really talk about. We expect that children are going to feel happy about these experiences, but sometimes for those of us who come from traumatic backgrounds, we don't know. I know how to do this now, but for my childhood, I didn't know how to feel good about good experiences and trust that it could be good without waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'll give you an example of my own experiences. I had horrible birthdays growing up, horrible birthdays. And what used to happen is on my birthday, my mom would hand me the unwrapped gift, and she would throw it basically in my direction and say, here's your birthday gift. And that was kind of how my birthdays went in my house. So when birthdays would come around, I would get nervous. I would get sick to my stomach. I didn't know how to have the experience of feeling good about a birthday. It wasn't until I actually became a classroom teacher, when I worked with little kids, and I just decided one day, you know what, my birthday's coming up. And the kids said to me, actually, it was a 3-year-old child who said to me, are we going to have a birthday party for you? Because that's naturally what you do, right? And I said, you know what? We're going to do a birthday party for me. And it was the best birthday party. Kids had things. They had streamers, and I just gave them streamers, and I gave them masking tape, and it was like all over the place. I brought in cake mix, and so they were able to make a couple cakes. We made we have the best birthday party, and it was the first time in my adult life, and I was a young adult at the time, but it was the first time that I ever had the experience of feeling good about my birthday. I actually got close to that experience, and if it weren't for the 3-year-old children, I would have probably sabotaged that experience, because as much as I wanted to have the experience of feeling good about it, all of those negative experiences that were in my foundations of life really got in the way of me being able to receive that love and really embrace it. And so it was 3-year-old children who taught me or the beginning of learning how to do that in a way that was authentic and to feel good and happy in that experience. So I tell you that story because there are children who are, we think that they're attention seeking. They're actually connection seeking. We reach out to show connection, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute here. I don't know if I want you to come into my space. The truth of it is, these kids are the kids we can't give up on. These are the kids that we have to consistently connect with. We have to show that affection. And if it starts with a smile, if it starts with, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you came to school today. Oh my goodness, let me tell you, I was thinking about you the other day, this weekend, and I picked up a couple things that I think we're going to try because you know what? I know this is something you're interested in. And so we're going to figure out how to make time so that you can help other kids learn how to do this. So it's like this idea of, I believe in who you are. I see the incredibleness about you, and I am so excited. And I'm going to connect with you on the level that you are able to receive it. And I promise you, and I have worked with some really challenging kids where it requires, literally, it feels like you're chiseling. You're chiseling these little tiny holes to get into their heart. Because by the time they're 5 years of age, some kids, and these are kids who've experienced trauma the way I did as a child, layer, and layer. They create layers between them and the world. Because you know what? I got let down by my mom. I got let down by my whoever in my life. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm afraid of what's happening in my life. So those layers are what protects us from feeling vulnerable and hurt. It's our responsibility as an educator to reach and chisel that hole so that we can connect at the heart level. Because I don't care if all the rewards and punishment in the world is not going to serve the child long term. We can wave a huge carrot we can give a sticker, a reward, a candy, a recess. We can do all that in the interim, in the short here and now, sure, that'll motivate the kid. But in the long term, that's not going to support the child. The other thing about the punishment piece, that really, if we want the child to connect, we need to get out of the mind that the child has to suffer consequences that are because he did something inappropriate. Now, I'm not opposed to logical consequences. You didn't want to put your jacket on when we went outside. You're freezing. I know. Next time, bring your jacket. Okay? That's a logical consequence. And so I'm not opposed, and I'm not saying that this is a free-for-all and that children can do whatever and they don't have to make amends for, and that's a whole different conversation, and I promise you I'll get into that. I'm not saying that children shouldn't be responsible for their actions and their behaviors. What I'm saying is that we have to get out of our minds that children need to feel bad in order to learn how to act right, okay? It's it's never the responsibility of the child to have a relationship with us, ever. It is always our responsibility to reach out to a child and to connect with them. It's always our responsibility to do that. And so some kids, because of the layers that they have, we have to chisel through so that we can connect with the heart at the heart level. Then we also have the other extreme who also have some attachment concerns. These kiddos who go with anybody and everybody. And these kiddos who you get a volunteer coming in, you get a parent coming in, the child's never seen this person before, and they're sitting on their lap, they're hanging all over them. That's also a big red flag for me. That's a concern. And so when you build a sense of community, you help children learn that when we know someone well, when people visit consistently, we know their name, we share stories with them. So an OTPG who comes into the room, a speech pathologist who might come into the room, someone they see consistently, that's when we form a relationship, and it's accessible, or it's acceptable then to extend things like hugs and, lap reading, or sitting even close by as you're reading a book together. That's very appropriate and acceptable. But when we don't know someone, it isn't appropriate or acceptable. When they're 4, 5, and 6, and 7, it's cute. Not so cute when they're 14 and 15. So anyhow, I kind of went off on a tangent, but I do that all the time, right? So I gave you a couple strategies. This is my daughter here. Do you want to come and say hi? Say hi. Hi. Okay, now go. It's her bedtime. So we do our nightly routine where she's 9 years old, and I still lay in bed with her, and we read books. So we read a chapter book at night, and we go through the whole ritual of connection during our nighttime experience. So anyhow, so I need to jump off because it's my night to engage and to read our book together. So hopefully some of these strategies have worked. You can definitely ask questions